Tetris, the new biopic thriller streaming on Apple TV Plus, starring Taron Egerton, is about the beloved game played by millions across the world from the birth of it from the 80s up until now. We got so many different versions. And this simple block game, which seems simple at first but can get complicated, is exactly what this movie explores in terms of the licensing and how it was created. I didn't think that this was going to be so fascinating and so convoluted and insane. So let me talk about the premise. Hank Rogers discovered Tetris in 1988 and then risked everything by traveling to the Soviet Union, where he joined forces with inventor Alexei Patnijov to bring the game to the masses. Let's start off with the good. So this movie takes a lot of liberties in terms of the story. It sticks pretty close to what actually happened. It gives some thrilling elements to give us that Hollywood feel. And it's really insane because after I watched this movie, I was like, did this really happen? To find out that most of the stuff that happens in the movie actually happened. I couldn't believe it. How crazy and insane to get the rights of Tetris, the creation, to get paid, and all the craziness and the backdoor dealings that happen in this movie actually happened in real life. And Hank Rogers, played by Taron Egerton, what he had to go through just to get some justice. Taron Egerton, who plays Hank Rogers, is an actor that I've heard of. I've heard that he's phenomenal in a lot of movies, but I've never personally seen any movies that he's been in. But now I definitely want to, because he's such a great actor. He anchors this whole movie with his performance. He plays Hank with so much charm, passion, determination. You can't help but root for him, even despite he's like someone that's a capitalist and trying to get greedy. But the way he's going about it, the honor that he brings to the character, makes you really want to see him achieve his goal. And this movie starts with him at a gaming convention trying to sell a game that he created himself, but no one paying attention to it. Walking around the convention and he sees someone playing Tetris. He grabs a hold of it and he is mesmerized by the game, as many of us are by the game back then. Even still now, you can just turn on Tetris and love it. But this is something that they've never seen before up to this point. And it was just fascinating as a gamer myself to see how Tetris was born, how it took over the world. I was born in the 90s, so I didn't really get to feel how it was a phenomenon back then. It was already normal to me by the time I was old enough to understand it. And he thinks he's buying the license for the game to distribute it in certain countries and certain consoles and things like that. But what he soon learns is that it's way more complicated than he expected. The road that this brings him down is a fascinating road of backdoor dealings and the craziness of how video game licensing was happening in the 80s, how people would create things and they would make these deals and it's not real. And you think that this person has this licensing, this person has this rights and all this stuff, and they never really had it. And they're just doing whatever. They're basically stealing information or stealing stuff from people. And depending on what country the thing comes from, the creator can get no rights at all. The movie feels not as like grand or as good as something like The Social Network or The Wolf of Wall Street, but it has that feeling. And we get to see Nintendo, which is a big part of the film, and they're more in the film than these other two companies like Atari and Sega, doing their like backdoor dealing and how they got certain things down, and like how certain countries interacted with others in terms of what you had to do to get them to deal with you. That was all fascinating to see. And Taron Egerton, because of the energy he brought to the film, made those interactions entertaining. This movie in the beginning plays like a charming drama of Hank Rogers going to country and video game developer to video game developer and different companies, trying to get them to do dealings with him as he thinks that he has the next big thing that's going to save his career. And it just slowly devolves from that charming drama of the scrappy guy trying to make it big to a political thriller as he goes to the Soviet Union, because the Tetris game is actually made in Russia. And he's not understanding the political part of this and just going in there thinking he can do his American ways there and charm them over. And it slowly devolves into this tense, scary thing where feel like his life was on the line, and it was like he wasn't understanding. It felt a little bit like Uncut Gems, the movie with Adam Sandler, where you had that anxiety-inducing feeling because you see him keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and every time something would happen and his family get threatened or something like that, he kept going despite all the warnings not to. This turns into backstabbings, twists and turns, and so many different aspects you can see in Russia, where you get to really spend a lot of time and see the state of Russia in the 80s and how they were transitioning from like communism to like a capitalist capitalist communism. I'm not 100% sure on the history of it, but that's kind of what the gist I got from the film. And we got to see both sides of it, just the people who didn't like the way things were and wanted more freedom, and also the government that was trying to keep the control. And them losing Tetris to an American was something that they felt will be a tipping point. And that was the real like crux of the film, especially in that second and third act. And the movie finds a way to make things a little bit more crazy with KGB involvement, car chases. And in the middle of all that chaos, we get a lovely bromance between Hank and Alexei, the creator of Tetris, as they bond over the creation of the game and create and doing programming. And it was really cool to see the birth of these two people who end up making the Tetris company. So that was really cool to see. And I really enjoyed their chemistry and the bromance there and how they push forward the film. And before I get into the bad, I want to give a shout out to the directors because throughout the film, they use 8-bit graphics to animate buildings, car chases, certain aspects of the movie. And that was really cool to see that be shout out and inspired in the film because that's what they're gravitating towards to in terms of the story and bringing that to life and adding that to the transitions really gave a little flair to the film. Now let's get into the bad. So the movie rushes so much information that first 20 minutes, like it had somewhere to go really fast. And by the time it started unpacking it in the second act and third act, I forgot some of the conversations that happened in the first act because it was so much. And then we got into a whole different thing. And then the themes and stuff like that started transitioning into the political thriller. But then they were referencing something that happened an hour ago. And I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. But now it feels a little convoluted because there's so many rights here. And this person has this and this person doesn't have this. And it was just the movie moves at such a quick pace in the beginning. Like it would move at a quick pace in the beginning and slow down and then move quick in the middle and then slow down. And you would forget that some of the information didn't spend enough time on just the dealings and who has what and to really let you sit with it. So you have information. So when things start going crazy, you already know like, okay, that person's supposed to have that. I wish the movie would have spent a little bit more time on the drama part, what was personally going on with Hank and also all the dealings that was going on because all that stuff was intense. You know, as a viewer, you know Tetris and how big and how much of a cultural thing that is. I didn't think that we needed it to turn into this big espionage thing that they did. It was interesting, but if I knew that they were going to sacrifice some of the other stuff, I would rather them cut that more down. And one last thing is the antagonists, their motivations didn't feel fully fleshed out or really explained super well. I kind of understood why they were doing what they were doing and what they wanted to do, but I think that they didn't spend enough time explaining it in a way that I was really fully on board and understanding why they were doing all these crazy backstabbing things when they could have just let things run smoothly. So that's one thing is I feel like the movie didn't dwell or explain on certain things. That's like my main issue with the film, even though I enjoyed it. Let's get into my verdict. So overall, I really enjoyed Tetris. I think it's a really good watch on Apple TV Plus. I think that if you are a fan of like dramas where they explain the dealings of things that going on, Argo, Wolf of Wall Street, and Social Network, and things like that, you definitely will enjoy your time with this film. Taron Egerton is great in this movie. He's really fun. I see why he was up for like Wolverine and Spider-Man and different roles like that because he's really, really mesmerizing on camera. Like, but with my negatives, it held it back from being a great film because I just feel like it just wasn't enough. So with that said, I'm going to give Tetris on Apple TV Plus a C+. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you personally rate Tetris if you saw the film? And if you were on the edge and you're watching my review to see if you want to go watch it, let me know in the comments below if you're going to check it out on Apple TV Plus. And this is a question I have for you guys. Do you have Apple TV Plus? I think it's such an underrated service. It has such great quality content over quantity, like not just put out a whole bunch of stuff like Netflix does. And then sometimes you can pluck a good thing out of it. I think almost everything they drop on there is really, really well produced. So let me know in the comments below if you have it and why you don't have it yet. Like the video if you like my review, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of my reviews, reactions, live discussions, and more. And you can catch more of my content right now.